Now to another of the big stories this morning. The Barclays Chairman, Marcus Agius, has resigned this morning in an attempt to take some of the heat out of the scandal over the fixing of an important lending rate. In his resignation statement, the Chairman of Barclays described the scandal as a devastating blow to the bank's reputation. Our business reporter, Danielle Codd, joins us with more. Danielle.
Good morning. Well, yes, I've got a copy of the Barclays press release here in my hand, and it confirms that Marcus Agius has resigned as chairman of the company. In it, he talks about it having been his privilege to serve as Barclays chairman for the past 6 years, but he does acknowledge that last week's events have caused a devastating blow to Barclays' reputation, and he says the buck stops with him and he must acknowledge a responsibility by standing aside. And this of course, was in response to the interbank lending scandal that rocked the City of London last week, when regulators fined Barclays $450 million after discovering that its traders had lied about the interest rates that other banks were charging it for loans. Now, I'm joined by Chris Roebuck from Cass Business School here in London. Chris, do you think this is a cynical ploy by Barclays to try and keep hold of their chief executive, Bob Diamond?
Well, certainly somebody had to go, bearing in mind the disgraceful conduct by certain people within their organisation. And I think it's fair that given the close association with the British Bankers Association that effectively deals with the LIBOR and works with the government, that the chairman was more likely to go than the chief executive.
So you think that Mr Agius had a much closer role in this LIBOR scandal then?
I'm not saying that he had a role in the scandal. I'm saying that the organisation, the British Bankers Association, which is the professional body for banks in the UK that is involved in the process of working with the Bank of England to set the rate, he was chairman of that, and therefore there is a personal link there. And if you have to have somebody go, if you take the two individuals, then logically it was likely to be the chairman, perhaps more than the chief executive.
But Bob Diamond was the one in charge of the investment bank at the time that this manipulation actually took place. So is it right that Mr Agius has stepped down, or should they both go?
Well, I think if both of them left at this particular point in time, it would be disastrous for the bank. And one of the key issues is that even though we are now currently a couple of years past the financial crisis, we don't want a major bank to be left to some degree rudderless at this point in time. Therefore, you either have to have the chairman go or the chief executive. The question is whether Bob Diamond was aware of what was going on, and the suggestion is that, being quite a large distance away from these individuals, that he might not have been. However, something in terms of a new piece of information came into the frame yesterday, where there was a suggestion that there had been a telephone conversation between Mr Diamond and the Bank of England discussing this issue at one point during the financial crisis. So the outcome of the investigation that's being started on this by the British government will be quite interesting to see exactly what happened where and what the timeline was.
So do you think, as a chief executive, it can be very difficult to know exactly what is going on the trading floors of your huge investment banks?
Absolutely. If you look at Barclays or any of the major banks, you're talking about organisations of over 100,000 people. And as the chief risk officer of one global bank said to me a couple of years ago, look, I know that with 100,000 people, somebody somewhere is doing something wrong. Our systems are designed to stop that getting out of hand, and we don't know it's going on unless we have leaders out there at all levels who have made clear to their staff that they should not be doing things wrong and spot what is going wrong.
And just very briefly, other banks are being investigated. Can we expect more big fines, and do you think more heads will roll further down the line?
Yes, many more banks are being investigated, and let's make it absolutely clear, this is not just a British problem. Citibank is being investigated, Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan, UBS as well. So this is a global problem with those very, very small group of people in international banks who dealt with that particular interest rate.
Chris Roebuck, visiting professor at Cass Business School, thank you very much for talking to me.